there's victimhood that comes with everything that as a woman you're not allowed to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like in turn that leads to feelings of being robbed of everyday activities that, you know, guys can do without.
Speaking to someone, they was that, you know, who's a guy, and they were saying that I was speaking about how I'd be worried walking in an alley at night and someone being behind me, you know, and then they were like, but yeah, so would I. But it's like, no, because we have different things we'd be scared about. You know, you could be scared of getting your phone taken or being robbed, or but for us it's very different, and we've been almost conditioned to think that we cannot even be in that situation in the first place. We can't even consider being on our own at night. It's dangerous.
It's higher stakes. Like I remember having one conversation with a boy sparked by kind of everyone's invited, and I was talking with a couple of girlfriends. It's like, yeah, well, after a party, we always text each other when we're home. And it was like this, that was such an abstract concept for him. Like, wait, you text each other every night when you get home from a plan? It's like, yeah, that's become a daily normalized part of our routine. I can imagine that if I was a young guy right now, it's a really harsh reality to be confronted with. And it's like, well, if I've never done anything like that, I think it was really hard for lots of people to understand that even if you won't do that, there's still enough evidence for women to maybe act more, I don't want to use the word hostile, but cautiously around you. And it's like, well, that's not fair. I've never done anything like that.
Yeah.
And there was this struggle to understand, well, to be honest, that doesn't matter to us. Based on stories from our friends, literally statistics we can find online, we're going to do this anyway to protect ourselves. And there was like that kind of disconnect that I think they struggle to understand. I feel like there's just a lack of awareness from younger guys about literally the preventative measures that women have to take on a day-to-day basis in order to avoid all this stuff happening to them.
Yeah.
You know, like hate against women, sexual assault. There's just that disconnect, that lack of understanding that this is a reality that we face with every day.
My experience of social pressure has always been that I've kind of seen my friends do these things, like, you know, they've gone abroad on holiday somewhere really cool, or they've, like, I don't know, been to like a really cool nightclub or like a really cool party or something, and I've just been like, wow, I don't do any of that. I'm so boring in comparison.
Usually, in my experience, if you're at a party or prees or a social setting and you're offered a cigarette or alcohol or drugs, and you say no, they'll usually, your decision will be respected. But I think the peer pressure comes not in such an active way, but in a passive way of just being the minority. You're more likely, being the only sober one there, it's hard.
The pressure that I had was, you know, just to look like I had everything together, to look like I was in control of my life, to look like, just to look stable and to look, and that's not the case. You know, everyone's struggling all the time, but especially with boys these days. You know, it's just double locked, sealed doors when it comes to just being honest with when you're struggling.
Also, another example, I was going on a summer holiday this year, which my entire year group was going on. Obviously, it got cancelled because of coronavirus, but it was the fact that I had to go. Like, I couldn't miss out. I had to go. But I think, looking back on it, I'm so happy that it got cancelled, because I know that I wouldn't have enjoyed it. It's not what I wanted to have done. And relating it to social situations, I think, don't put yourself in a group of friends and in a position that you know you're not going to be comfortable in. There's a difference of stepping outside your comfort zone and being somewhere which you know you shouldn't be. You know that you could be bad influence.
It's really interesting having like conversations with my parents and my parents' friends. Is they're like, in their mind, their stereotypical idea about how peer pressure operates in social settings, it's a bit outdated.
Everybody's going to work the same, and that's fine. It would be really boring if they did. And it's sort of, I like having different perspectives and different personality types in a friendship group, and I think it would be not as enjoyable if everybody did the exact same thing every single week and there was no variation.
There is not much I've posted. It's just some of my favourite pictures. and people just don't see the rest of life. They don't see what happens in school, what happens at home. And I don't think it's a problem. I think it can become a problem when everything becomes about social media. So because, we're able to, I see my friends at school all the time, and friends out of school, I see them all the time. So we know that it's not the reality.
I would sit there for about 2 hours doing this on my phone, just refreshing the likes and seeing how much can I value my life based on a digital number that I receive from the amount of people that double tap their screens. Like, have you ever? It's so ridiculous that we base our worth off of that.
I use social media to kind of, I guess, learn about what other people are doing and to kind of promote my own views and like what I do in my life.
Nowhere else in life do you get rewards so instantly. Do you get appreciation, understanding? It's artificial, but so instantly, and it's an addictive. It's addictive, and what I think is so damaging about that is it makes this mindset, which is so focused on instantaneous release and instantaneous gratification, and then it's so impossible to get up from that and sit down for a few hours and work.
We are able to stay, connected with. I'm able to stay connected with my friends much more, especially through lockdown. Where without social media, not being able to see, at least in the first one, friends for that long would have been awful. But because of social media, we could stay in touch, even if we weren't actually talking. We were, we saw stuff other people were doing on their stories. We were able to have that level of connection.
I remember being traumatized when I would, not be invited to a social event, and I happened to find that out because, you'd see them getting in someone else's car or something like that. The idea that, you're just constantly seeing getting in, it's, I don't know. There needs to be some serious action and quick, because, these kids have got no chance otherwise.
If I try and go on social media to make myself feel like less alone or less sad, I'm not going to come out feeling any better.
Yeah.
I often feel that like social media is just kind of a mirror to whatever you're feeling in the moment.
I don't remember any circumstances of online abuse or cyberbullying, but what I have seen and what I think everyone sees all the time is anti-Semitism and I'm sure and Islamophobia online. People commenting stuff that they really shouldn't be posting and they wouldn't say in person.
Thing that I've seen recently is that it would be a completely innocent video it could be a cooking video, and you've got a comment saying "Free Palestine." Like, it's so unrelated that it becomes so political, and I think that having a young child in that social climate can be really it's scary. It's a scary time. I think not just Jews, but I think for all people, just general bullying and general hate comments that are just so unnecessary.
I think it can be a huge, boost to your morale. But then again, if you post something which, I don't like saying this, but you're young and you shouldn't post it, and that goes viral, then that can have a real lasting effect on you. And on your mental health.
There'll be a massive difference between me as a parent and our parents, because of course there's that generation gap, that cultural gap, and everyone likes to think that their generation is different, but I do believe that our generation is like this new culture that our parents can't really empathize with. And I think with my kids, I'll be able to speak from experience and just tell them from the very start, listen, I loved it. I loved the social media. I loved it, but it had its toll on me, which I would not have wanted on anyone, you know what I mean? So parents these days, I think their job should be, from the very start, before, kids get overly exposed and overly desensitized, to just holding that message.
There are good elements to social media as much as there are bad ones, because I think it's kind of a reflection of humanity, and humanity has just as much good as it does bad, arguably.
Always knew I was a bit of an outsider within
the community and all the other kids that I'd be with when I was younger in primary school and at the beginning of secondary school. And I always knew that I wasn't the same, like I didn't hang out with boys like that boys did, and I was always had girlfriends, and I wasn't doing football, I was doing other things, and I was always just a bit different. When something's not spoken about, it automatically becomes wrong.
Yeah.
Or when something's ignored, it becomes wrong. So I think not being taught about it and just being taught that men marry women and you grow up and have kids and that's what's right, everything else automatically becomes wrong and bad. So in my mind, I was just like, I'm never going to be able to live a normal life. Like, I can't let this happen. And it was honestly petrifying. I remember seeing someone who was much younger than me. I don't remember where. I think I was at a dinner party or something, I'm not sure, talking about how they were gay, and they were so open about it. And I was like, oh wow, like if this person at this like young age is talking about it so freely and openly, like why can't I? And that was my first, I think, encounter with someone who was like me firsthand in person. Yeah. From my same sort of background. I was like, okay, so this could be a thing. This is realistic for me. It's not something that's completely out of the ordinary.
It's funny how it literally takes one person. It takes that one small bit of social support and you feel like you have the complete confidence to break out of these norms. It literally takes one person. Yeah. Because
I think that particular night was the night that I set in stone that I was gay, because I think before that I was never really like forcefully in my mind, I am this and I have to accept it and I'm going to have to deal with it and find a way around it. Except for that night, I remember thinking, I'm going to come out because I am this, and I've only accepted it just now.
Yeah.
At that age, you believe that your parents do no wrong and you believe that they're little superhumans.
Yeah.
So you think, if they're going to say no to this and this is wrong, what can I even respond to that? Because you think they are all knowing when actually they are also human. And I remember telling my twin sister, which was amazing, but I always knew she would always be accepting. And then I told my older two sisters, which was also amazing. Mm-hmm. But obviously you're always nervous for the parents because they're like the overriding factor of whether you feel accepted, and that's where your at that age as well, that's where your main love comes from. So I came out to them the next day and they were awfully accepting, of course, like they were completely fine about it. But I do have to say they have definitely come a long way since then. I think they've definitely grown as people. I think as being part of an Orthodox religious school, it definitely plays a part. Everything in the community is off of appearance. Everything is, as much as people say it's me, my connection with, but it's also actually my connection with the community of rabbis and everyone else who plays a part in it, because it's your life. Your community is your life, especially when you're on this one. Yeah. And I think it was hard for them to explain to other people, because they also had never really been around anything like it, and it was hard for people to understand why they accepted me for some people as well. A gay son was firstly a snowball that they never ever thought was going to come towards them. I think as parents, especially in this community, you never think that will happen to you.
Yeah.
And you just don't really ever think about it. And I think that for them was quite a shock. And it made them more accepting as people to different cultures and communities, and just more open-minded. I think something that's common in the Jewish community is to believe that it's a choice. And once you sort of wrap your head around the fact that it's not a choice and it's something that's actually who a person is that they can't decide, I think it will make it a lot easier for a lot of parents to understand.